Pushed.
Bish bash bosh.
Here we are. We are live.
Wrong colour. Wrong colour.
That's naughty. Calling me out. Right. Oh, look at my invisible watch.
I'm looking at mine. It is bang on 7 o'clock, Finn McCool.
It's Thursday. Boy, are you ready? It's El Maestro this evening.
El Maestro. De Porteña.
Oh, we should be wearing our flamenco. Oh no, that's Spanish. Tango outfits.
Do 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 do. Be do be do 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 do. Right, hello everybody.
Oh God, the hair, the lockdown hair is just getting out of control. It bothers me so much.
It's fine.
Good evening. It's Thursday.
It's 7 o'clock. The dog is waiting for his first morsel
Finn is
of
ready.
something.
Here we go. We are Finn.
And here we are, El Maestro de Argentina this evening, everybody. So welcome. Pam, Jude, Finn, you all know us by now from Hannibal Brown Wines, delivering to your door every day of the year, up and down the country, inside out. And what is
down,
this?
back to front.
Inside out.
Has everyone decanted the wine if they have it?
It has to say that decanter has been beautifully cleaned today.
Only clean the outside, actually, but I assume that's all right. Hi, Claire. Hi, Clarky and Bob.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everybody.
They're
nice
2
to see
glasses
you.
through already. I hope you've eaten something.
Are they? Wowza.
Yeah,
well, let's pour some wine,
fortunately,
shall we?
it's a big bottle, or it's a sort of confusingly large bottle.
For those of you who just joined us, actually, I wonder whether you can give us some feedback to give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, because we've just had new...
we are fibre optic.
We've had new fibre optic put in, so actually at huge expense and massive frustration, actually, but we won't talk about that. But if it's better, then let us know. If it's just the same, then we'll
get rid of it
and start again.
Hi, Felicity and Jane. Well done. And they've made the empanadas. Who else has made the empanadas? I heard some of you have. They're really tasty and they're super easy. There is no reason not to make the empanadas.
Do you know, I think empanadas is one of those things that actually the more you make, you just perfect them every time. You perfect them over and over and over again.
You're kind of encouraging me to make some more.
Yeah. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Hi, Jackie. Welcome. Glad you managed to get in.
Hello, Jackie Chick. Nice to see you.
Right.
So what are we doing? We're talking about Argentina.
We are talking about Argentina as a whole, and then we're going to hit specifically on this one.
I love Argentina. I am very blessed with having been able to go to Argentina a considerable number of times, actually.
Lucky you. I've never been, sadly. I have.
And I would go back like that.
Right, well, let's pop it on the list.
Yeah.
We'll ship him out somewhere and get down there.
Have we got the Welshies on?
Claire has arrived.
We have some Welshness. So the key is to know, by comparison, how big. So we're going to talk about Mendoza, which is a sort of a city and a region on the west side of Argentina, but particularly Mendoza as opposed to anywhere else in Argentina, because it is largely responsible for the majority of wine that comes out of Argentina.
Anywhere between 70 and 80%, depending on where you read it.
Yeah.
We're going to have another quick hello.
Yeah.
Patrick, hi, Patrick. Cheers.
Good evening, Patrick.
Cheers.
Nice to see you.
And Anne Woodsey, hello, welcome. So Argentina.
I suppose before we say that, if anybody hasn't decanted their wine, it's not too late, or at least give it some serious swilling attention in the glass. This is a bruiser of a wine, and as you can see, it's got a few years on the vintage. So
most of you have 2015.
Most of you have 2015. One or two of you may be lucky to have 2013. However, it doesn't really matter, and we'll talk about that because of the consistency of vintages coming out of this particular region. It's quite interesting how they do control the consistency, and it is quite consistent. So it doesn't really matter in this respect. But the fact is, they've either 2013 or 2015, they've both got a good length of time in the bottle,
and they're both bloody good, right?
Yeah, but they do need to open
decanting and swirling. Yeah,
exactly.
So cheers, everybody. Cheers.
So what's Argentina known for?
So,
busting our backsides.
I've got some great Argentina facts. But first of all, they're around about 6th in the world in terms of volume production. So they're big. They're a big producer.
Yeah.
They used to drink an awful lot of that, right? I mean, they used to be the biggest consumers per capita. It was like 90 litres a year or something, wasn't it?
But you know what? this has changed actually, because in the 1990s, they were the biggest wine producing nation outside of Europe. So they're still, what are they, the fifth biggest in the country? Fifth biggest in the world.
Fifth
now.
or sixth, depending again on.
So they were bigger than the US in the 1990s. So it's only recently, really, that the 1990s have taken over.
That the 1990s have taken over.
But the Americans have taken over.
Don't say that's the hair that's bringing back the 90s.
I haven't even had a drink this evening.
So Felicity has got the 2013, which is great. Oh, hi, Jonathan as well, by the way. Luke and Simon have offered to dog sit. If you could just sign, if everyone witnessed that, and we could have a second, we'll drop him round just before we head off to.
By the way, anybody who wants to know, he's eating these things. I advise everybody, do not buy these. These are absolutely disgusting. They're called Marmite biscuits. They're disgusting. Give them to your dog.
Okay, right, here we go. So I'm just going to just say a few words about the geography and get a map up, because I know how useless everyone is with their geography.
Yeah. Come on, Finn, pay attention.
So Finn is really
pay attention. Listen, please. Listen up, big
problematic. So first of all, I know that you know where Argentina is in the world. So we're not going to bring up a map of Argentina, but we are going to bring up a map, of South America on the right. And then on the left is the wine region. So first of all, if I just zoom in.
Buenos Aires, everybody.
If I just,
get some perspective on it.
Zoom in. Here we go. If I just go up here.
There we go.
So this is the bit of Argentina that we really care about. Buenos Aires being on the right-hand side. And then the red area is, the red and green, you're looking at the wine regions. But Mendoza specifically is that pink area. And I'm just going to go over to the left, and this is it sort of expanded. Mendoza is, what did we say, 70 to 80% of all of the wine produced in Argentina.
60 to 70.
Oh, you want 60 to 70? Well,
it's huge either way. It's huge.
And depending what you read, they produce the best wines in the
Depending
world.
what they want you to know, to be honest.
Exactly. But anyway, so there it is. Argentina, really long country. The wine regions stretch 1,500 kilometers from north to south. That's mega, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what it's really all about, and go on.
But just to point it out though, so actually, if you look at Argentina, Argentina is an enormous country, and we're really only talking about the west sliver of it that goes down the sides of the Andes. Other than that, it's just La Pampa. It's just flat prairie land for as long as you can go, all the way east to Buenos Aires,
where all the beef comes from, right?
Which is exactly, which is where their other sort of farming is concerned. But just to also, can I just give you an idea?
Remove
how big? How big that pink area is. Because I know we all like to compare to the size of Wales.
Well, we do.
Because everybody knows where Wales is.
Yeah, and how bloody long it takes to drive through it.
So Wales is 20,000 kilometres squared.
That's a lot of sheep. That's a lot of sheep.
20,000 kilometres squared. And the region of Mendoza is 148,000 kilometres
just
squared.
Mendoza.
So that's just that little pink area.
So just Mendoza is 5 times.
6 times.
6 times, sorry.
No, 7 times.
Okay.
7 times
between 5 and 7 times the size of Wales.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
but it's the city of Mendoza, which is a small city, and it's only 54 kilometres squared compared to Cardiff, which is 140 kilometres squared. So it's a third the size, but it's the main city of Western Argentina. It is the main city of Western Argentina. And yet it's tiny by comparison. It's a third the size of Cardiff. And Cardiff's got like 335,000 people. They've got about 100,000.
We should really be using Ireland, because it's Paddy's Day yesterday, wasn't it?
Oh, well, we are in green.
We should really be using Ireland.
But I like to be consistent. I like to talk about Wales. Okay. Wales is lovely.
Yeah, Wales is also green.
Yeah. And then we'll get on to rain in a minute.
But most importantly with Argentina is altitude. And I'm going to show you my next map here, because this puts it all into perspective. So here, if I add this to, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't need to look at this too closely, but the bottom pink section starts at 32 degrees south, which is where Mendoza lies, okay? And if you look at it and track it across the world, it goes right through the Western Cape of South Africa, through Western Australia, through north of New South Wales,
It's
even
a long way
potentially
south.
Queensland.
It really is.
Yeah, that is hot zone.
Yeah.
And if you look at the equivalent, 32 degrees north, it's running through Tunisia, way south of Turkey,
Yeah.
way south, north of Morocco.
Texas.
It's hot land.
Yeah.
So
desert.
But yet Argentina produces these wines with such great acidity and structure and this kind of European style.
Yeah.
And the only way they could do that is with that altitude.
Because of the Andes.
And where are the Andes? So 100%, that's really bad. Back to the topic. So first of all, let's just go back to this wine and we'll talk a little bit about Finca Agostino, because Finca Agostino, we do a few of their wines and they've been in and out of stock consistently this year and last year, just because it's difficult moving wine around at the moment.
Things are tricky at the moment, everybody.
But they are brilliant.
Containers are in the wrong place.
Yeah, exactly. Things are just stuck all over the place.
Yeah.
But this Familia blend is kind of their top end. But when you put it onto the stage of world Malbecs, actually, although it's $27.50 a bottle or thereabouts, it's actually, I know it is pricey, but it's a lot cheaper than a lot of the really, really, renowned good Malbecs. The wine that won World Malbec Award in 2019, that retails at about $140 a bottle. Yeah. So, this is big money. Yeah. So actually, for the sort of quality you've got in this, if you were having a wine from Bordeaux of this quality, you'd be paying that.
But I think a lot of this is to do with also the economics of Argentina, because up until sort of the early 2000s, Argentina was probably the wealthiest country in the world. Mm-hmm. And nobody went there because it was so bloody expensive. Nobody bought any wine from Argentina because it was so expensive.
That's when they were just drinking them all themselves.
And that's what they were drinking all themselves.
Spending all their hard-earned money.
Happy days. And they were also, they were producing wine just for quantity, really, more than quality, because they needed the quantity for their own sort of consumption. But it did make this massive barrier to everybody else. And, meanwhile, Chile was selling shed loads into particularly the US and then Europe. But Argentina were kind of like, they were self-contained. And then, of course, there was the big crash in 2002, which I remember.
Bottom falling out.
I remember. I remember because
you weren't that young.
I remember because it was the strangest thing, because it was like on Christmas Day and it was all over the news. And I went to Argentina later that year, and it was a real mess. And the likes of, us and you guys were sort of piling through the dustbins to find sort of something to eat, but having lost everything. There's so many people were destitute
because it was so expensive.
So many middle of the road, decent living people with decent salaries just lost everything. And what had happened was that they basically, up until then, they pegged the peso to the dollar. And so there was stability, but they meant that the peso was totally overvalued. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, some bright spot said, we're not having this any longer. And it was devalued and effectively sort of disaster overnight. And it was disaster for the world of wine as well. Mm-hmm. So, and
every other aspect of their economy, I guess. I mean, just in about the year 2000, just in Mendoza itself, wine was 50% of the entire city's economy.
Wowza.
So,
But of Mendoza.
Yeah. Nice. So it's important. Hola, Alice.
Can I just say, because I know we were talking about this, there's a really good program on TV at the moment about watching the world's best hotels.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Luxury hotels.
World's best luxury hotels. I think it's on.
They're all in the UK at the moment.
But I think one of the best hotels I ever stayed with is in Mendoza.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Well, anyway, the Argentina Tourist Board can get back in touch with us and give us our royalties. So here we go. Back to Finca Agostino.
Okay. Oh yeah. So going back to the price. Oh, right. Sorry, just finishing off the price. The price. So since 2002, Argentina's had to go. We need to start shipping. We need to start exporting, and so they managed to get into the US. And there's been this explosion of wine activity over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. And expertise has got better. The wines have got better and better and better. And ultimately, the prices have gone through the roof. So
right, yeah. So the
do not be
cheapos.
surprised. You can pay a fortune for a bottle of Malbec in the region where this wine comes from. So going back to what Jude said, for what we are drinking today, this is actually quite reasonably priced.
Yeah, it's excellent value because it's so good. I mean, I hope you guys are enjoying. What is everyone thinking of the wine? We'd like to know. And the empanada combo. Let's hope.
Yeah. It needs a lot of air. It needs time.
Within Mendoza,
I think we should come back to it tomorrow.
Well, I'm quite happy.
Give it 24 hours.
Within Mendoza, there's a few different areas, like every region, where you get different qualities of wines. On the eastern kind of southern and eastern Mendoza is where there's a lot of the bulk Malbec made. You know, the stuff that you get from the supermarkets that's really quite reasonably priced, probably not £5 a bottle now, but £7, £8, £9 a bottle. Big fruity, it's a bit warmer down there. When I say down there, it's still 600 meters. The lower vineyards in Mendoza are an elevation of 600 meters. It's high.
Yeah, everything's on the foothills of the Andes. Everything.
But you look, as you move west and move up the foothills, that's where the quality of the wine changes, and that's where you start to pay a little bit more.
Have we got a picture? We've got a lovely picture of Agostino.
Yeah, we have. So let me just
show everybody Agostino.
Okay, so this is the actual winery.
So very modern, because it was only built in the 2000s.
Yeah, 2003 was it established, or 5 maybe?
Yeah.
By 4 brothers whose surname is Agostino.
They've got so much money, they don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's why they started a winery. They're not going to.
You know what I love about this? They've got an underground tunnel.
Oh yes,
attaches the cellars to the house.
Brilliant. They're obviously slightly sensitive to the sunlight or something. And then here is their vineyards. Look at that.
Yeah,
I mean, look closely at the mountains in the background.
So as Jude said, you've got to remember that those vineyards that still look like they're on plains, they're still at 600 meter altitude. And then they go up and up and up, almost up to sort of 2,100 meters, which is ridiculously high to be producing. And yet when you get to that elevation, you're still seeing these like big, wide vineyards that are kind of like easy to manage because they're on sort of flat plains, but at crazy high altitude.
So here we go. So what does that mean for wine? So we've talked about it being in potentially a really hot climate. Obviously, we know as you go up, it gets colder.
Yeah.
They get a lot of sunlight.
Oh my God, they get a lot of sun.
Awful lot of sunlight. And one other really brilliant feature of those big mountains that run down the side there, the Andes, is the fact that they form a rain shadow. So Mendoza and that sort of area itself is basically a desert, isn't it? It is. Here we go. Here's another good Welsh comparison. Mendoza receives around about 200 millimeters of rain in a year. Yeah, that's 20 centimeters.
Yeah,
that's this right.
Yeah. Guess how much the Welsh get? It's a goodie. It's a lot. So in 2000, I don't know, in the year 2000, the Welsh got 1,800 millimeters. So 200 meters compared to 1,800 millimeters. Yeah. To be fair, I thought it'd be even more.
1,800 is 1.8 meters, so it's your height in rainfall. Yeah. Swimming pool stuff,
It's a lot.
Sadly, Patrick, I haven't been there. Pam's been, but I haven't been there, and it is absolutely stunning. And we will all be there soon, I'm sure.
Interesting if you go back to that picture, Jude. Just go back
to my lovely
picture.
There we go.
So that picture, unfortunately, you can see the Andes in the back as the backdrop. But actually, when you're there, they're fascinatingly blue. People talk about the blueness of snow and blue mountains and what have you, and they really do reflect this blueness, which is, I don't know, it's coming from the atmosphere or whatever. And when you look at them, they are blue and absolutely stunning. I mean, if you could get a helicopter there and back in 20 minutes, it would be a fabulous place just to go for the weekend. But first opportunity, we were just talking about it. This is one of the places I would really, really enjoy going back to. There's a rusticity to Argentina, and yet, as I said, it used to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. But it does have this big sort of like massive disparity between very, very wealthy, your what do they play?
Polo players,
and the other thing.
Oh well, we'll come to
that. And sort of poverty as well.
Like so much of South America, right?
But it is a stunning place to go on the west side. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I keep interrupting.
That's all right. So these four brothers, we could call them Vince, Ross, Mike, and Seb.
Bobby, Jimmy, Teddy, and
but
Harry.
They're called Vincenzo, Rosalia, Miguel, and Sebastiano Agostino. Yes. They were born Argentinian. They moved. Their whole family moved in the 60s to Canada, and then but their grandfather, these four brothers, their grandfather Sebastiano, always used to work in the vineyards. He was basically a winemaker, a wine grower, wine farmer. Yeah. And they always talked about going back and had a bit of a soft spot for the homeland. And in the early 2000s, they went and did a recce, and then they just went for it. Yeah. So they clearly got an awful lot of spare cash. So it didn't matter if they were going to do well or not, because they'd done quite well anyway.
But they were quite right, though, because they spotted the fact that, and they must have taken a bit of advice as well. They spotted that actually this was potentially going to be a really, really impressive area to start growing vineyards, because they've grown vines in Argentina since the monks took them in, the Jesuit priests. It always starts with the monks. It always starts with the monks.
Where there's
so
religion,
they've been knocking about for a long time. But actually, really, there was a massive influx of Europeans that went over there after phylloxera. Remember the old phylloxera thing, everybody? So the phylloxera, when the phylloxera struck Europe, a lot of European winemakers went, well, not much we can do in Europe at the moment, so let's pick up some vines and take them over to South America, which is what they did. So South America is the point at which they started thriving, the 1870s, 1880s, and just will never look back. But I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, then I'll take over there, because actually the Malbec vines were taken from Bordeaux, because Malbec was one of the big Bordeaux grapes. Yeah. And actually, first of all, taken to Chile. Yes. And the first vines were propagated in, like, what I've written it down, 1845 in Chile. That's the first time they'd got to South America. But the Chileans kind of snubbed their noses at it a bit and decided, actually, I think we kind of like Cabernet. Oh. So they kind of chose Cabernet over Malbec. And then this chappie, whose name is Domingo Faustino Sarmiento.
Love it,
course,
love it, love it.
There's a lot of Italians, immigrants in South America. He got on his donkey, literally on a mule, and took his vine samples and cuttings over the Andes on this donkey. And that's no mean feat. This is not like, popping over the, one of like a Snowdon's pass. They're mega. Yeah. The tallest one of the Andes is like nearly 7,000 meters. Yeah. And he got to Mendoza and was like, oh, this will do. This is good. He'd been in exile in Chile, and he planted the vines and set up a school to teach and train farmers in Mendoza to grow grapes and grapevines. And the first school he set up was on the 17th of April in 1853. And 17th of April, which is coming up soon.
Don't tell me it's Malbec Day.
It's World Malbec Day.
Yes, World Malbec Day.
So we're a bit early. But actually, World Malbec Day is only about 12 years old. However, it was established from that date that Domingo got over the Andes and set up his school and was like, I'm going to teach people how to grow wine in this country.
So just imagine, actually, if he hadn't made it over the Andes, the Argentines wouldn't be where they are today.
No, Malbec, they'd be growing. There's a few indigenous grapes to Argentina, which are pretty unheard of. They wouldn't be on the wine map, really, not like they are now. Yeah. So let's talk about a few challenges, because we know that it's actually Malbec is doing brilliantly well and everybody loves it. Yeah. Hang on, just before I carry on.
Question?
There's a question.
Is it a big one?
From Jackie. It's a blend of 4 grapes. Yeah, quite right. We haven't covered it. So, Petit Verdot. Jackie's question is, there's a blend of 4 grapes here.
PV.
And one of them is Petit Verdot.
Yeah.
So
another famous French grape variety from Bordeaux.
This producer, Finca Agostino, produced a couple of straight up Malbecs. You might have seen the Inicio Malbec and then the Reserva Malbec. And they're just 100% Malbec. But this one is a blend. Yeah. And it's a blend of Cabernet, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Syrah. these are real classic Bordeaux grapes. In Bordeaux, you don't get 50% Malbec, you get mostly Cabernet or mostly Merlot.
Yeah.
And Petit Verdot, not surprising you haven't heard of it, Jackie, because it is a lesser known grape. It's used for blending. Right?
Often it's used for blending. In actual fact, you see quite a bit of it. It's used a lot in South African red wines, but you never really see it on a grape variety, on a label.
Single
because
variety,
it's a blender. The reason why it's used for blending is because it is quite meaty. It's quite punchy in flavor. In flavor stuff,
Tannic,
it gives a huge amount of flavor, color as well. Almost sort of like purple, sort of deep, intense. But Petit Verdot in isolation can be quite. You can get 100% Petit Verdot wines. I'm not saying you can't, and they can be delicious. But often they are really rather sort of huge, and therefore you only need a little bit.
I'm not sure I've ever tried a Petit Verdot 100% actually.
Yeah.
In the last 10 years, I've tried a lot of wines.
Yeah. Which goes to show there aren't very many of them.
No, exactly. There you go. So yeah, good question, Jackie. But yeah, a blending grape, but gives a bit of structure.
Yeah.
So I would think I was just going to go back to doing my little fascinating facts about Argentina.
Here we go, everybody. It's fascinating facts about Argentina. I love this.
Just before that, so I've got just a quick weather one. I think I was just saying, Malbec, it grows brilliantly. Argentina is so lucky, a bit like Chile, in that they don't have, it's very dry, so they don't have mildew and things like that they don't have to spray to prevent. So there's a lot of organic farming.
Yeah.
They've not got very many pests because, they've got to be seriously, intrepid pests to live at altitude like that.
Yeah.
So they really got it quite lucky. But what they do have as a big problem, and I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to show you a picture and ask you a question. Okay, and then we'll move on in a second. So this is what a lot of the wineries have to put up. Okay,
what are they protecting against?
What are the nets for? Do you think?
Hungry doggies.
Put your guesses in the comment in the chat.
Everybody.
So
give your best shot.
This is possibly preventative against their biggest issue, which really can be quite devastating.
It is devastating. Yep. Every year it's devastating. To about 30% of the crops.
15 to 30%.
Yeah,
depending on
pretty much over the course of every year across the region, they're losing a huge quantity as a result of this nasty thing that comes along
and these nets will help.
But just going back to just to reiterate, then, so just going back to Jude's map of where Mendoza region is, which is a long way south. They're very, very, very hot. So therefore, we need this elevation going up the sides of the mountains. The higher they go, in fact, the better, really. Full of antioxidants and all those good things that
make you live longer.
Make you live longer. But it does mean that actually it's a very, very dry climate. There's very, very little rain, 200 millimeters, which is just nothing. And so no pests, no nasty,
no rot, no mildew,
nothing at all, which means it's incredibly organic as well, because there's no need for sort of spraying or pesticides or anything like that, because everything is just there. It's just like
happy days. Cheaper farming, much better value wines.
Yeah, right. Have we got
There's
answers?
a lot of
answers.
And also this dry climate means not locusts. There was a lot of locust guesses.
Just for the benefit of Hillary, and what do they say?
So there's a lot of people who have guessed locusts, condors, interesting, birds in general, sun, greenhouse effect, pterodactyls, which I know.
Did nobody say puma?
No puma.
You do get pumas in the vineyards. I did see a puma in a vineyard in Argentina when I was there one time.
Not the main problem in the wine industry.
No, but I'll tell you what, I was a bit petrified.
Scare the life out of you.
I was a bit petrified. And I'm not talking about a trainer.
Okay, so in this picture, what we've got is vines that are raised quite high.
Did everybody get it wrong then?
Yes, which is great. No, that's great, because then the
well, they might come back.
The anticipation.
They might learn something. You might learn something this evening, everybody.
So the picture is of vines, and there are large nets stretched across the top, protecting the vines from something. Now, hopefully, if I press this button, you're going to see what it is. That is hail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now these hailstones are like the size twice the size of a tennis ball.
It's a grapefruit.
It's like a pineapple grapefruit size.
Summer
it is huge.
Summer hail in Argentina is the biggest problem for any farmer, but these will not just damage grapes, which have already formed. They can potentially kill you, but they will they will not just damage this year's fruit. They can damage an entire vineyard, wipe it out. So you have to start again from scratch. Okay, this is seriously extreme.
It does happen every year.
This is seriously extreme. I have another picture which is slightly smaller, but it still looks like you've emptied your ice tray, which you just would not want falling on your freshly. This is not, it has to be said, in the winter. This is summer, isn't it? So
this is budding season.
Yeah,
so this is when it's dangerous because the vines are actually growing.
Even it even happens once grapes are formed. So this is truly devastating. So yes, quite right. Get your gin and tonic out there and hold your glass out. And they're brilliant for that. But actually, those large ones would probably be a bit over the top for your gin and tonic that displace your glass, let alone the gin. But yes, nightmare.
Yeah,
nightmare.
Yeah.
So I thought you'd like.
Whilst we're just on that subject, whilst you're going into your interesting facts about Argentina,
yeah,
I love this. Can you have a look at that picture again with the nets?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me just go to it.
The next thing, everybody. So you'll notice that actually in this particular vineyard, the vines are actually trained. They're quite high. And this is actually to do with the vineyards in Argentina. They're not all as high as this, but a lot of them are. This is a sort of pergola system.
So they're probably about shoulder height.
A lot of this is higher.
Head height.
Yeah. A lot of this is to do with their ancient irrigation systems, which they took from the what do you call them? The Incas. The Incas. And what they have done up until recently, and certainly when I was there, this is what I saw them doing, was this flood irrigation, where they'd open sluices. They'd dig these like long trenches along the sides of the vineyards, and basically allow water using a series of sluices to come in and out, and essentially just floods the entire vineyard. And that would be their way of actually irrigating.
It's the way I do the garden watering.
The problem with that is that actually, I mean, it works, but as anybody knows, that if you flood your tomatoes with water and then leave them to dry out again,
it's not the best.
It's not the best.
No.
So a lot of that is now being replaced with drip irrigation systems, where it's a much easier, much more systematic, much more controlled. And this goes back to what we were talking about in terms of consistency of vintage. If they can control their irrigation in the way they do with drip irrigation, then basically you can almost systematically create a vintage to be as consistent as the previous one.
Because the weather, other than that, is sound. As long as you don't get killed that year by grapefruit-sized hailstones, then your wine is probably going to be as the same.
So what we're seeing now is actually a lot of the vines are now not trained quite as high because they're now adopting this irrigation system. So you still get these pergola training, but a lot of them are lower now.
So look a bit normal European style.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But you still might get killed by a grapefruit-sized hailstone.
Interesting facts,
Here we go. So as with Oregon, I just love learning about these countries.
I like it as well.
And Argentina is like a country you really associate with sort of passion and all these things, and so I've got a few fascinating facts just about the country in itself. So and here's the first one. What do you think the national sport is? As those answers come in, I'll tell you a few other facts and then I'll come back to it.
What's the national sport of Argentina, everyone?
I think put your answers in the chat. So on the 29th of each month, in Argentina, it's like National Gnocchi Day.
What do they do in February?
It's an extra special one when it's a leap year and you have
National
giant gnocchi.
Day. I like that.
So they eat gnocchi. Like if you go look on any restaurant menus, there's gnocchi on the menu. It's a really good cheap yuzu uppy at the end of the month, and it's become a thing. So it's there's also a ritual that if you put some money under your plate of gnocchi, then it gives you good fortune for the next month to come. So that's quite nice. You know, you never associate it with gnocchi.
Hockey, football.
And then
yeah.
And then so here we go. They're also quite a what's the word when you're like you just all about your looks, you care about your looks. Superficial.
Argentines.
They're quite a superficial bunch,
but they're very conservative and they're very sophisticated in the way they dress. So when they go out for dinner, they don't wear their jeans. They get properly dressed up for the occasion. Even just going to the pub, they are immaculate. They make us look like urchins. They really do. About 1 in 10 of the entire population have had or will have some sort of plastic surgery in their lifetime. In fact, they have. In the female population of Argentina have the highest occurrence of plastic surgery per capita in the world. How much?
Okay. So the highest occurrence. And on the flip side of that, they also have the highest number of psychologists per capita in the world in Argentina. Oh, yeah. And I think the two probably go together quite well, to be honest with you. It's got the highest point in the Southern Hemisphere, and that's this.
Is that the
Oh, no, that's not that. Oh, remove that. Oh, that nearly gave away the answer. Let's just skip back to that bit.
Aconcagua.
Mount Aconcagua. This mountain is nearly 7,000 meters high. I mean, 6,900 meters. That is absolutely massive. It's the highest mountain range, the Andes. Well, the second highest, only to the Himalayas.
Is this one where the aeroplane went down?
I will have to pass on that. And
if it's not this one, it was one right next to it.
Very near. It's roughly in the area where the aeroplane, I'm sure there have been aeroplanes go down. In fairness. Okay, so going back to the national sport. No, none of the above, actually.
Oh,
interestingly.
What have we got?
So we've got all the questions with polo, football, bull, interestingly, but why not? Curveball. But actually, none of that.
Hockey, football, no, none of those.
It's actually a sport which is known as... Let's get back the blooming picture. Hang on a minute. Just bear with me. Oh, come on. Okay, I'll tell you. It's known as pato. Pato in Spanish means duck. Duck.
Okay. As in quack, quack.
As in quack, quack. Although when I first read that, I thought it was in like, watch your head kind of thing. Right, I've no idea what you're looking at. Here we go. There it is. There are some guys on horseback playing pato with a giant kind of butterfly net and a ball in a bag. So why was it called duck, you might wonder? And that's because historically,
what was it Tell me.
Instead of a ball,
it was a duck.
They used to put a live duck in a basket.
Are you listening to
and
this,
chuck that around.
We could do this to you.
Fortunately, and I think it was actually in relatively recent years that they said actually it was not very kind to the duck. So they got rid of that. But they're quite nasty to ducks in Southern and Central America. I remember in Nicaragua, second day I've arrived, went to the sort of village, and
it's true, actually,
there was they were on horseback and they were dangling a duck from basically like a football post, and they were riding past and grabbing it, and whoever's grab managed to get the duck's head in their hand and rip it off its body was the winner. So they're not very nice to ducks. But anyway,
poor ducks.
There we go, pato.
Good old Jonty. That's what I say.
Yeah. We like
shout out for Jonty's ducks.
Thank goodness for animal rights these days. So here we go. On to my next one. I've got a good. Oh, here we go. This is a good. I'm just going to show you the picture.
Here he is.
We probably all recognise this is
Saint Maradona.
This is a very famous footballer, Maradona. Maradona. There is a church of Maradona. There is a religion following Maradona. Would you believe that?
Following Diego Maradona.
He had his own church and religion. There's around about 80,000 followers of this religion. Yeah.
I'm surprised there aren't more. I mean, they're a massive football country as well.
Well, I know, but I mean, this is bonkers.
Yeah.
It's basically he's got a bit of a cult following. When you see some of the photos online, it's like just ridiculous. And they've got their own 10 commandments.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And 2 of them
I shall not use my hand to punch the ball in the net.
No, that's not on the list, weirdly. Nothing quite so wholesome. One of them is you have to name your firstborn son Diego. And the second is if you're a man, you have to change your middle name to Diego. So there's nothing like self-interested about this whole religion.
So if you got a dog,
good old Maradona.
We'll call you Diego, shall we?
So here we go. This is my next picture, and this is possibly one of my favourite facts.
Yeah, now pay attention, you dog lovers out there.
So I'm wondering whether I could put this as a question. There is an animal. There is an animal which there's a bit of a black market for. So toy poodles are very, very popular in Argentina. Okay, and like with in any country and in any world, probably any world, you wouldn't believe this would happen on this planet. As soon as there's something which is really popular, people try and make money out of it fraudulently. So in order to sort of tap into the toy poodle fad, but on the black market, they have taken this animal and fed it steroids and basically quaffed it and sold it on as toy poodle. The animal is on the right and the poodle's on the left. What do you think it is? What sort of animal are they feeding? Are they feeding steroids and then passing off as toy poodles? And whilst you think about that, I'll tell you my final and possibly most ridiculously weird fact about Argentina.
Go on.
So we all know the story about Evita Peron.
Yes.
Yeah. So when her husband, so she died before her husband, and he went to live in Spain and got remarried. And then as a sort of, I suppose, a kind of show of respect to his late wife, he got her body exhumed, the embalmed body exhumed, got it shipped out to Spain and had it sat in their dining room with his new wife until he passed away.
Now, you see, I kind of remember this being in the news.
Yeah, it was the front page of the Mirror.
Yeah, yeah. Oh God, I have to look into that.
I'll show you a picture in a minute. But yes, there have been a couple of right guesses. It's a ferret.
What's that question?
I'll tell you about it. It's a ferret, yes. So they basically, the black market is ferrets fed on steroids, quaffed, and sold as toy poodles.
Could this be the reason why Finn hates poodles?
I think he probably hates ferrets as well, to be honest with you. I'm not sure he's that discerning. Anyway, so that's that. And then this is the embalmed body of Evita. There you go. And that concludes my weird facts about Argentina. So back to the wine. Yes, Patrick, definitely agree.
What's the question?
Patrick says this Familia tastes better the more air it gets.
It does. And you'll notice that actually I'm sitting here eating cheese because this is not the type of wine that you want to be sitting down drinking on its own. It needs loads and loads of air. And I'm not really joking, actually, when I think, we should just leave it for 24 hours and come back to it tomorrow.
Even better. Although I would say this is lovely and soft.
Yeah.
And back to Malbec. This is one of the reasons that Malbec is so popular.
Yeah.
Is the soft tannins. And actually, in Mendoza, the further you go up the hill, the further you go up the mountains, can't we call it a hill? It's absolutely enormous. The longer the ripening season, the longer you leave the grapes, and that's something I didn't really appreciate until I was doing a bit of research recently. The longer, and you will know this obviously, the longer the growing period and ripening period, actually the tannins develop. So if you've got Malbec that's harvested earlier and younger, it's softer tannins. But actually, if you leave those grapes on the vine longer and longer and longer, those tannins develop. So tannins ripening actually means tannins are becoming more aggressive almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you want tannins to give a wine structure.
Yeah.
So there is, if you have a wine that's a Malbec that's produced in too hot a climate, without that those cool periods at night, etc., you're actually going to end up with something jammy, which is not very pleasant. So I know that, McGuigan,
yep,
jumping on the bandwagon, saw the rise of popularity of Malbec, and was like, right, we're going to plant up in Australia. We're just Malbec. But actually Malbec that's grown in southern Australia in, an average of probably 25-degree day and night heat, it's not going to be the same, is it?
No.
It's going to be really too sweet.
I think, yeah, exactly. And that is the uniqueness of this region, which is so far south, and with this such a close proximity to these mountains that basically control everything. But the whole thing means that whilst it gets incredibly hot, the sun is intense. It gets hot in the lower lands, but it's cool, and therefore the growing season is nice and long, but it's gentle. Mm-hmm. So you do have that length of sort of the tannins, of the tannins developing and developing. Mm-hmm. But because you've got lots of ripening coming from the fruit, and also good acidity because it's relatively low, then you've got this sort of like marriage. If you've got those three components in sort of in you know, sort of come together, marriage together, then you've got a wine that will last for a long time. And in fact, incidentally, the winemaker suggests 10 years. This wine's got another 10 years on it before it's really going to sort of kick into its sort of optimum, I would say maybe 5 years is the optimum. But at the moment, we are drinking relatively young wine, even though this is 2013.
We have the 13. Yeah. The 15 is still young, but because it's in that lovely Mendoza climate, and this is not too high up. This is from the Maipo Valley. So there's 3 areas which are of note for quality in Mendoza. There's the Maipo, there's the Uco Valley, UCO Valley, and there's the Lijon de, what's it called?
Curico.
Hang on. Lijon de Cuyo. Lijon de Cuyo.
Cuyo. Yeah.
Or Cuyo, which is super swanky stuff. Yeah. But again, it's very much the higher you go up, the more expensive the wines get almost, because the longer they need cellaring, but the better quality. So you've got wines that, if you lie down for 20 years, are going to be absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But you pay for that.
Yeah. So we should say in actual fact, so the little brother of this familia from Finca Agostino is the Inicio. Now we struggle. Oh, this is something else in actual fact. I should just mention now. It is kind of quite difficult to ship wine out of Argentina sometimes, and it really depends the time of the year. Bearing in mind that at the moment, shipping across the world is a bloody nightmare because all the containers are all in the wrong place at the moment. So shipping is a bit all over the place. But in certain seasons, for example, during the summer, it's cheaper and more efficient for Mendoza to ship their wines out of Chile, which means that the wines have to leave Mendoza, their wineries in Mendoza, in trucks, go over the Andes, and then they ship out of Valparaiso in Chile.
Where's Valparaiso?
It's a winery.
Oh.
Valparaiso in Chile. This is the more efficient way, or the cheapest way, I should say.
As the crow flies.
But you can't do that in the winter because of the amount of snow in the Andes. And so in the winter, the wines from Mendoza get shipped by overland across the wilds, or the wild west of Argentina, and then they ship out of Buenos Aires.
Now, much longer distance.
Yeah. So anyway, but I was just going to say that because I always find that actually quite interesting that you would think, oh, Argentine wines should be shipped from Argentina, but in actual fact, a lot of the time they ship out of a different country.
Yeah, because these are right. But there is that big mountain range to go over. I'm amazed that's.
I know.
I suppose there are passes have been built in recent years, presumably.
Absolutely. Anyway, so his little brother, the one that's a little bit more affordable, is the Inicio from Argentina, from Finca Agostino, which is about $15.99. However, we are constantly running out of this wine, and we have a thimble full of this stuff left at the moment.
We're out.
Don't know when we've got a few more.
Did you find a few bottles
or something like that?
Okay, news to me.
But literally, sort of, don't ask us when it's going to be coming in, because it is like, it's a bit of finger in the air stuff at the moment. It's the same with wines coming out of Australia and further afield. All these ones that are far flung, and are just taking a little bit longer than we expected. So there we go. Hey, we're not going to run out of wine, everybody. Don't worry.
No, but I mean, we could talk about Argentina till the cows come home, but we really should probably let everyone go back to their empanadas and steaks and whatever else you have done.
So here's the thing. What does it go with best? I mean, it does go brilliantly with proper solid cheese. A proper solid cheese.
Yeah. Big hard cheese. But
and then
steak, big meaty.
Asada. Yeah,
because it's got soft tannins. It can take a bit of fruit with
barbecued meat.
Yeah, it can take a rich jus even with your meat.
The winemaker says wild boar. Yeah, so anybody's got access to a wild boar, Bob's your uncle.
Here's one.
Not a dog.
Here's one. He's got two dangling bits of drool as we speak. It's pretty feral.
Right then.
So here we go. Next week is volcanic. Okay.
Boom.
But volcanic at a really affordable end of the scale, because you can really pay through the nose for volcanic wines, which are interesting but expensive. But we've got 2 brilliant value wines from Sicily, the Cielo Rosso and the Cielo Bianco, strangely enough. They're both under £9, I think, or about £9.20. Should really know that before telling you. Absolutely brilliant value and really natural, organic. And we're going to just talk a bit further about organic wines. We're working really hard to try and get a bit of a special guest. And if we can't get the special guest, then we'll at least get some words from them to play.
Special guest. And then the week after that,
Rosé, the sun's going to come out. It's summer. We're all going to be sitting here in shorts and t-shirt in the sunshine.
And we are rosé. Fact, we are. It's going to be 18 degrees the week after next.
There you go. If you drink rosé, the sun comes out.
Sun's coming.
Suzanne Challoner, thank you very much. I'm glad you joined us. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed that. Learned a few new interesting facts about Mendoza and Argentina.
How big a hailstone can be.
How big a hailstone can be and what they do with ferrets.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Anything you want to know, just grab us or go onto our website or just pick up the phone and have a chat. Anytime.
Give us a shout if you want the wines for next week. Like I say, both under £9 or around £9. Really good value, delicious. Yeah. You don't have to think about opening a bottle. It's great.
And maybe we should say something. We're thinking about putting a wine tasting in the calendar.
A real life one, yeah. We'll keep you posted on that. Maybe more info next week.
Keep you posted.
So cheers, everyone.
Nice
Happy Thursday. Have a great week and see you next week.
Bye.
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 Say bye, Finn.
Bye, Finn.